And state powers comes to a head in the courtroom today. A federal judge is going to hear arguments over whether or not President Trump broke the law when he deployed the California National Guard to Los Angeles.
President Trump sends the National Guard into Los Angeles, and suddenly the political class is in full-blown meltdown mode. But here's the question that no one in the media wants to ask. Why did it take the president stepping in before Gavin Newsom even pretended to do his job? Breaking down the emergency showdown between President Trump and Governor Gavin Newsom, or Gruesome as I like to call him. Now, this is after Trump deployed the National Guard to stop the chaos ripping through Los Angeles in the summer. This wasn't a polite disagreement. Trump openly called Newsom one of the worst governors in history and also accused him of standing by while these violent riots spiraled out of control. And here's the part that really matters. The people of LA were left to fend for themselves while their so-called leader played politics. And just so you see the bigger picture, the exact same fight over Trump's constitutional authority is also playing out in a courtroom with Harvard. This is where an elite university is trying to overrule the commander-in-chief on immigration and national security. So whether it's the streets of Los Angeles or the halls of Ivy League, the playbook is the same. Block Trump at any cost, even if it means ignoring the law.
Emergency arguments over President Trump's deployment of the National Guard to Los Angeles. This all comes just hours after the president called out Governor Gavin Newsom for not stepping in to stop the violent riots, saying in part, quote, "I did incompetent Governor Gavin Newsom, who doesn't have a clue, the favor of a lifetime, one of the worst governors in history."
You know what's really telling here? Gavin Newsom didn't spring into action until President Trump embarrassed him on a national stage. And let's be honest, Trump is not wrong. Newsom had days to get ahead of this violence, protect businesses, protect families, and restore order. Instead, he let it fester. And the second that Trump steps in, the left screams overreach and militarization. No. This is called doing what's necessary to protect the American people when weak leadership fails. The National Guard isn't the problem here. Gavin Newsom's negligence is. And if Trump had waited just one more day, who knows how much worse it would have gotten in LA. This is the difference between leadership that acts and leadership that hides behind press conferences. And here's the other thing. This isn't even some radical, unprecedented move. Federal law explicitly gives the president the authority to step in when local forces can't handle the crisis. You don't have to take my word for it. The law spells it out in black and white. Now watch this.
10 U.S.C. 12406 specifically allows the president to activate the National Guard when regular forces are insufficient. The LAPD said they were overwhelmed. The LAPD are quote unquote regular forces. So what's the issue here, Mehek?
Exactly. This law isn't some obscure loophole. It's a clear directive that when regular forces are overwhelmed, the president can activate the National Guard. And the LAPD themselves admit that they were swamped. That's what regular forces means in this context. So what's the outrage about? The only people clutching their pearls are the same ones who sat on their hands while Los Angeles burned. This isn't about legal overreach. It's about political egos. The law is the law, and Trump followed it to the letter. The problem is, it exposes just how badly Newsom and his allies failed. They had no plan, no urgency, no will to act, and when somebody finally stepped in, they cried foul because it makes them look weak. Well, that's because that's what they really are. And this next clip, it drives that point home. Listen to this.
Look, Todd, I think that we're going to continue to see President Trump's executive orders and his constitutional base continue to be attacked by Democrats like Gavin Newsom because he's politicizing his office. We can clearly see sitting miles and miles away. I'm sitting here in Columbus, Ohio, exactly what's happening in California. You have riots, you have ICE that's being completely overrun. So what President Trump did as the commander-in-chief under his Article 2 powers was send in the National Guard as a defensive move to protect the individuals in LA. And what we're constantly seeing is Gavin Newsom try and usurp his authority. The president has the authority to call in the National Guard, and you nailed it. Under 10 USC, the execution of federal law is necessary here. When you're looking for a defensive posture to actually protect federal building and ICE officers, that's exactly what President Trump is inclined to do. He's trying to defend people today. And what Gavin Newsom is doing is politicizing this by going to court and saying that he should be making these decisions. The fact is, he cannot veto or override President Trump's legal authority here. He's going to lose in the Ninth Circuit. And this is a waste of court resources and taxpayer dollars.
Well, that's what I've been saying from the start. Gavin Newsom isn't just neglecting his duties. He actively is trying to block the president from doing the job he constitutionally is empowered to do. The Constitution, Article 2, gives the president clear authority to act as commander in chief. And the 10 USC, well, that spells out exactly how he can deploy the National Guard. California's in chaos, riots in the streets, ICE facilities overrun, federal property under threat, and Newsom's priority wasn't stopping it. It was picking a political fight. And let's be honest, going to court over some, noble stand for states' rights, well, that's a PR stunt, and it's one they're going to lose. Even in the Ninth Circuit, the law is not on their side. Meanwhile, you have taxpayer dollars that are being wasted, court resources are being drained, and the people of Los Angeles are left wondering why their governor is more interested in flexing against Trump than keeping them safe. This is exactly the difference between a leader who acts to protect Americans and politicians who act to protect their own image. And Newsom, well, he's betting the public won't really notice the difference. Spoiler alert, we notice. And here's the part the media won't touch because it blows their entire narrative apart. If even the notoriously liberal Ninth Circuit can't side with Gavin Newsom on this, then we're headed straight to the Supreme Court. And when the facts and the law are this obvious, the highest court in the land isn't going to hand Newsom a win just to make him feel better, just to coddle him. But it's not just about the National Guard. There's another case that shows exactly how desperate the left is to trip up Trump in any way they can. Watch this.
Yeah, look, it's one thing to be liberal leaning if you're a court. We all know that courts have been liberal leaning, some of them since the dawn of time. But it's another thing to ignore the facts and the law entirely. And I think you're right. If the Ninth Circuit doesn't back Trump on this, this is ultimately headed to the Supreme Court. And I think based upon the obvious, they have to go along with him. Before we let you go, I want to get your thoughts on this. Judge extending block on Trump's international student ban at Harvard as another judge dismisses the case of teachers unions suing Trump administration over $400 million cuts to Columbia. I don't want to focus on the Columbia thing. There's no way that a judge could have said anything other because no teachers union has standing in this case, and that's what the court said there. I want to focus on Harvard. Does Trump win that battle with Harvard in the end, in light of the fact that this ban does not apply to all colleges, just Harvard?
This right here is why the double standard in the courts is impossible to ignore. They can lean left all day long, but at the end of the day, if they completely ignore the facts in the law, they lose any shred of credibility. And Harvard's fight against Trump's international student ban is a perfect example. First off, this ban doesn't apply to all colleges. It's specifically targeting Harvard for a reason. And that reason is rooted in the national interest in immigration control. But Harvard, instead of making an honest legal argument, is framing this as some type of blanket unconstitutional overreach. And the left is cheering it on. You know why? Because they think it'll be another black eye for Trump. But here's the problem. The law is on Trump's side. Just like the National Guard issue, he has clear constitutional authority here. Harvard is banking on the court of public opinion, not the actual court system, right, to win this fight. And the moment this hits the higher courts, that bubble's going to pop. Because when you strip away the media spin and all the political posturing, you're left with one reality. Trump is acting within his powers, and his opponents are acting out of politics, not principle. And here's where it gets more ridiculous. The Harvard fight isn't just about immigration policy. No, it's tied to something far bigger that the media is conveniently glossing over. Watch this.
President Trump's going to continue to win because remember, this whole ban against Harvard was because of anti-Semitism, the fact that there's CCP and Chinese nationals, and you constantly see what's happening today. These judges are continuing to say that an elite institution like Harvard gets to determine national security. Once again, Todd, this is a push on President Trump's executive powers. He has, as a commander-in-chief, not only the executive powers over foreign affairs and national security, it means he regulates immigration to protect the United States of America, not Harvard. So again, this is a creep up on constitutional powers that President Trump and solely President Trump has. He will be winning this case, but I'm seeing a lot of these cases going to the Supreme Court because every single Democrat and every single institution, including Harvard, is challenging President Trump's national security experience and authority.
The part nobody in the mainstream will say out loud. This ban wasn't pulled out of thin air. It's connected to a very real concern about anti-Semitism, foreign influence, and yes, the Chinese Communist Party's reach into American institutions. Harvard isn't just some Ivy League campus. It's a hub of foreign student programs, research partnerships, and funding streams that raise legitimate national security questions. And here's what should scare every American. Judges are essentially saying that an elite, unelected institution like Harvard gets to set the rules for national security, overruling the commander-in-chief. That's not just bad policy. It's a dangerous precedent. The Constitution gives the president, and only the president, the authority over foreign affairs, immigration policy, and national defense. Harvard's not in charge of protecting the homeland. Harvard's job is to educate students, not negotiate with foreign powers or decide who gets to bypass immigration law. What we're watching here is a slow creep, a coordinated push to chip away at the very constitutional powers that make the presidency effective. And the playbook is obvious. Tie Trump up in endless lawsuits, drag cases through friendly liberal courts, and hope the public doesn't notice the bigger picture here. But the truth is, these cases will end up at the Supreme Court, and when they do, the law will side with Trump. Every time. Because whether it's the National Guard in LA or an immigration ban at Harvard, the facts and the Constitution are on his side. And that's why, no matter how many roadblocks the left tries to throw in his way, Trump just keeps winning. So let me put this whole picture together for you, right? In Los Angeles, you had chaos in the streets, law enforcement begging for help, and Gavin Newsom doing what he does best. Absolutely nothing. President Trump steps in, uses clear legal authority under the law to deploy the National Guard to help the state, and suddenly the outrage machine kicks into overdrive. The media screams overreach. Newsom runs to the courts. But here's the problem for them. The law is on Trump's side every single time. And when the legal fight doesn't work, well, they pivot to the next manufactured crisis. This time, Harvard, an elite institution that somehow thinks it has the right to dictate U.S. national security policy. And in the middle of the case is rooted in anti-Semitism concerns, foreign interference, and CCP influence. Judges are entertaining the fantasy that Harvard's institutional preferences outweigh the commander-in-chief's constitutional powers. I want you to think about how insane that is. An unelected university deciding immigration policy for the President of the United States over the President of the United States. From the National Guard in LA, guys, to immigration enforcement, to defending federal property, to regulating who enters our country. These are not optional powers for the president. They are constitutional obligations. And every time Trump fulfills one of those obligations, the political establishment, liberal judges, and entrenched institutions line up to stop him. This isn't about the law. This isn't about justice. This is about power, as always, and power about who gets to hold that power. And here's the bottom line. When the riots break out, when ICE is overrun, when foreign actors threaten our universities, Trump acts. And every time he does, the same crowd that failed to act in the first place screams bloody murder. But no matter how many lawsuits they file, no matter how much taxpayer money they waste, no matter how much media spin they pump out, the law is still on Trump's side. And that's why I'm going to end this for today, because he's going to keep winning. And they know it.
मीठा दाल एक इधर से एक उधर से आ रहे एक नीचे दो है नीचे या ये